was family brunch. I wasn't looking forward to it. Laura, my sister-in-law, always had a way of putting me on edge. Mark, my husband, poured coffee for everyone. The hot liquid filled my cup, but a strange metallic smell wafted from it. I tried to smile, but my stomach tightened. I had been to too many brunches at Laura's. Each time, something went wrong. Each time, I ended up feeling sick. In my mind, I flashed back to those moments. I remembered the time I had food poisoning after eating her famous quiche. I spent the night in the bathroom, regretting every bite. I thought it was just bad luck. But now I wasn't so sure. I felt uneasy. As I looked at Laura, I noticed her smirk. It was small but unsettling. I could see something in her eyes. She seemed pleased. Mark, on the other hand, looked nervous. He kept glancing at Laura, then at me. I could sense the tension building between them. "Try the coffee," Mark said, forcing a smile. I nodded, but my heart raced. I hesitated, unsure if I should take a sip. Instead, I lifted the cup to my lips and pretended to drink. I watched Mark and Laura closely. I needed to know what they were up to. Laura took a sip from her cup, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I felt a knot in my stomach. "Isn't it great?" she asked, her voice too cheerful. I set my cup down, trying to mask my anxiety. I excused myself, saying I needed to take a work call. I stood up quickly, my heart pounding. I moved toward the hallway, but my mind raced faster than my feet. I needed to swap mugs with Laura. I walked over to her, trying to keep my movements casual. "Hey, can I borrow your mug for a second? I think I spilled my drink." Laura looked confused but handed me her cup. I switched the mugs in an instant, my hands shaking. I needed proof. I didn't want to believe that my family could hurt me, but too many strange things had happened. As I walked back to the table, I caught a glimpse of Mark and Laura whispering. I stopped and listened, my heart sinking. They were talking about getting rid of me. The words struck me like a slap. I felt panic rise in my chest. I sat back down, pretending everything was normal. Laura took another sip from the swapped mug. My eyes were glued to her face. I had to see her reaction. At first she smiled, but then her face changed. Her smile faded, and she began to tremble. I felt a rush of fear. I quickly pulled out my phone and started recording. Mark's face turned pale as he watched Laura. "What's wrong?" he asked, panic in his voice. Laura's trembling grew worse. "What did you put in this?" she gasped, her eyes wide with fear. I recorded every moment, knowing I needed evidence. Mark's confusion turned to horror as he realized what had happened. Laura's eyes darted around, searching for answers. "Emily, what did you do?" Mark shouted, his voice rising. He looked like a man trapped, desperate to escape a nightmare. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had finally caught them. Laura collapsed onto the table, her chair scraping against the floor. I stood up, my heart racing, and called 911. "Stay calm, Emily," I told myself. "You can do this." I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke to the operator. My sister-in-law just collapsed. "We need help." In the background, Mark was frantic. He tried to help Laura, but she was not responding. I watched as her fear turned into confusion. When she regained consciousness, her eyes locked onto mine. I saw a flicker of understanding. She knew something. The emergency responders arrived quickly. They pushed past me to reach Laura. I handed over my phone, showing the recording to one of the paramedics. I wanted them to see everything. While they worked on Laura, I felt a mix of fear and vindication. I had spent too many nights in the hospital due to strange incidents. I remembered each time I had felt sick after meals with them. As the paramedics took care of Laura, I shared my story with the police. I explained everything I had witnessed. I told them about the food poisoning incidents. I described how strange things had always happened at Laura's house. They took my statement seriously. I felt both relieved and terrified. I knew that Mark and Laura had been plotting against me. I had been right to be cautious. Mark was taken into custody. I watched as my life began to shatter. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. This was not how I imagined my life would be. As I left the house, I took one last look. I thought about how love could turn sour. I never thought I would feel so betrayed. I thought about how I had trusted both of them. In that moment, I knew I had to fight for my truth. I had to stand up for myself. I felt a spark of determination ignite inside me. This was not the end. It was just the beginning. I stood outside Laura's house, my heart still racing. The chaos inside felt surreal. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I needed to know more. I had to gather evidence. I couldn't let them get away with this. I walked back inside, my mind focused. The paramedics were working on Laura, and Mark was sitting in a chair, his face pale. I felt a rush of anger. How could he sit there looking so helpless? I needed to act. I pretended to check my phone, looking for an excuse to move closer to them. My hand shook slightly as I scrolled, but I was really listening. I could hear the paramedics asking Laura questions about what happened. "Did you drink anything unusual?" one asked. Laura hesitated, her eyes darting to Mark. I felt my stomach twist. She knew something. I quietly approached Mark. I wanted to confront him. I needed answers. I leaned in, my voice low. "What did you do, Mark? Did you help her?" He looked up, his eyes wide with panic. "I didn't do anything. I swear." His voice was shaky, and I could see the fear in his eyes. "Then why were you both whispering about getting rid of me?" I pressed my voice firm. I needed him to feel the weight of my words. Mark's face turned red. I was just trying to calm her down," he stammered. I shook my head. I didn't believe him. I took a deep breath and stepped back. I needed to stay focused. I needed proof. I excused myself again, saying I needed a moment outside. I walked to my car, my mind racing. I had to think clearly. I remembered the last time I met Laura and Mark. Things had been different then. Flashbacks flooded my mind. I recalled the first family gathering after Mark and I got married. Laura had welcomed me with open arms. She cooked a big meal and we laughed together. It felt warm and inviting. But now everything felt cold and dark. I pushed those memories away. I couldn't dwell on the past. I needed to gather evidence to protect myself. I opened my car and rifled through my bag, searching for my notebook. I flipped through the pages, recalling every strange incident at Laura's. I wrote down dates and details. I wrote about the times I felt sick, the strange tastes in food, and the whispers I had overheard. Suddenly, I heard the sound of footsteps. I looked up to see Laura being wheeled out on a stretcher. I felt a pang of fear for her, but I also felt a need for answers. I decided to follow the ambulance to the hospital. Once I arrived, I waited in the lobby. I needed to speak to Laura. I needed to know what she knew. After a while, a nurse came out and told me Laura was stable. I felt a small sense of relief. I approached the nurse. "Can I see her? I need to talk to her." The nurse hesitated. "Visiting hours are limited, but I can ask if she can have a visitor." I nodded, my heart racing. I wanted to know what Laura would say. I waited anxiously, my mind spinning with thoughts. Finally, the nurse returned. "You can go in, but keep it brief." I rushed to Laura's room. She looked weak, but her eyes sharpened when she saw me. "Emily," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happened?" I took a deep breath. "You tell me. What did you drink? Did Mark have anything to do with this?" Her eyes widened. "I don't know what he gave me. I thought it was just coffee." I felt a surge of anger. "You don't get to play innocent, Laura. You were in on it." She shook her head slowly. "No, you don't understand. Mark, he's not who you think he is." I paused, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "I never wanted this," she said, tears filling her eyes. "He's been planning this for a long time. He wanted you out." I felt a chill run down my spine. Why would he do that? Laura swallowed hard. "He's jealous. He wants everything for himself. I tried to warn you, but I was too scared." I felt a mix of emotions, anger, fear, and sadness. I wanted to believe her, but could I trust her? I leaned closer. "You need to tell me everything. I need proof. I need to stop him." Laura looked away, her face filled with regret. "I wish I could help you. But Mark, he's dangerous. You need to be careful." I nodded, feeling a knot in my stomach. I didn't want to be scared, but I had to be smart. I needed to gather more information. Before I left, I asked, "Did you send any messages to him? Anything that can help?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I have texts. I'll send them to you." I squeezed her hand. "You need to tell the police everything." She agreed. I left her room, my mind racing. I had to find a way to protect myself. I couldn't let Mark win. As I stepped outside, I pulled out my phone. I needed to document everything. I took a deep breath and started typing. I would not let fear control me. I would fight back. I knew that I was just beginning to uncover the truth. I would do whatever it took to stand up for myself and expose their scheme. I felt a new sense of strength rising within me. This fight was far from over. I walked out of the hospital, my mind racing. I had spoken to Laura, but I still felt lost. I needed to confront Mark. I needed answers. I decided to go to the police station and share everything I had learned. The sun was setting as I drove. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I parked and walked inside the station. The air felt heavy. I approached the front desk and asked to speak with someone about my case. After a moment, a detective came over. "What can I help you with?" he asked, his expression serious. I need to talk about my husband, Mark, and my sister-in-law, Laura, I said. There's been a poisoning attempt. I have evidence. The detective nodded and led me to a small room. I sat down, my hands shaking. I took a deep breath and started to explain everything. I told him about the brunch, the strange coffee, and how I swapped mugs with Laura. I described how she collapsed and how Mark panicked. I shared my suspicions about their conversations. Did you get any proof? He asked, his eyes focused on me. I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording of Laura's collapse. I also explained that Laura had promised to send me texts that could help. The detective listened carefully. This is serious, he said. If what you're saying is true, we need to take action. I felt a flicker of hope. What happens next? We will investigate. We'll talk to Laura and gather more evidence, he said. You need to stay alert and keep documenting everything you find. I nodded. I knew I had to be careful. As I left the station, I felt a mix of anxiety and relief. I was finally taking steps to protect myself. Days passed and I waited for Laura to send the texts. I checked my phone constantly, hoping for any sign that she was okay. I felt trapped in uncertainty. Then one evening I received a message from Laura. I'm okay. I've sent you the texts. Please be careful. My heart raced as I opened the message. There were screenshots of conversations between Mark and Laura. They discussed plans that made my stomach turn. They talked about how to get rid of me and how to make it look like an accident. I felt sick. I couldn't believe Mark would go this far. I knew I had to take this evidence to the police. I rushed to the station again, my heart pounding. I found the same detective and showed him the texts. This is what I was talking about, I said. This is proof of their plan. He read the messages, his expression growing serious. This is troubling. We need to act fast, he said. We'll bring Mark in for questioning. I felt a wave of relief, but also fear. What would happen when they confronted him? Would he deny everything? Later that evening, the detective called me. We have Mark in custody. We're questioning him now. We'll keep you updated. I paced my living room, my mind racing. I felt anxious but also empowered. I had taken action. I was no longer a victim. After a few hours, the detective called back. We have some answers, he said. Mark is denying everything. He claims you are paranoid and making this up. I felt a surge of anger. That's not true. I have proof. I know Emily, he said. But he's sticking to his story. We need more evidence. I hung up frustrated. I knew it would be a long battle. I decided to dig deeper. I would find more proof. The next day, I met with Laura again at the hospital. She looked tired but relieved to see me. Did you get my texts? She asked, her voice weak. Yes, I did. The police are questioning Mark, I replied. But he's denying everything. Laura frowned. He's good at lying. You need to be careful. He's manipulative. I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. I need your help. Can you tell the police everything? I will, she promised, her eyes serious. I want to help you stop him. As I left the hospital, I felt a mix of hope and fear. I had someone on my side, but I knew Mark would fight back. I needed to be prepared for anything. Later that week, I gathered all my notes and evidence. I made a timeline of the incidents involving food poisoning and the strange conversations. I wanted to present everything clearly to the police. I returned to the station, ready to share my findings. The detective looked impressed as I laid out the timeline. This is great work, Emily, he said. You've documented everything well. I felt a sense of pride. I just want to make sure he's held accountable. The detective assured me they would continue to investigate. We'll talk to Laura as soon as she's well enough. Your evidence is strong, but we need her confirmation. I left feeling a mix of emotions. I was determined to see this through. I knew I had to stay strong. Days turned into weeks and I felt the pressure growing. I was constantly on edge, waiting for news. I started to notice small changes in my life. Friends began to ask if I was okay. They could sense my worry. I tried to keep my focus on work, but it was hard. My mind was always on Mark and Laura. I felt like I was in a battle with no end in sight. Then one morning I received a call from the detective. We need you to come in. We have new information, he said. My heart raced. I was both scared and hopeful. I'll be there right away. As I drove to the station, I prepared myself for whatever news awaited me. I knew this could change everything. I entered the station, ready to confront the truth. I walked into the police station, my heart pounding. I felt a mix of fear and hope. I needed to know what new information they had. The detective met me in the lobby and led me to the same small room. Thank you for coming in, Emily, he said, his expression serious. We have some updates on your case. I sat down, my hands shaking. What is it? Is it about Mark? He nodded. We spoke with Laura. She is willing to cooperate. She shared more details about Mark's plans. A wave of relief washed over me. What did she say? The detective took a deep breath. Laura explained that Mark had been planning this for a long time. He felt overshadowed by your success and wanted to get rid of you. I felt a chill run through me. That's horrible. Why would he want to hurt me? He thought that if you were out of the picture, he could have everything to himself, the detective explained. He also mentioned how he felt jealous of your career. I pressed my lips together, trying to process this. So he really wanted to poison me? Yes, he replied, his voice firm. Laura confirmed your suspicions about the coffee and the food poisoning incidents. She said he often talked about making you sick to keep you from succeeding. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe Mark would go this far. What happens now? We're moving forward with the case, the detective said. We have enough evidence to charge him with attempted murder and conspiracy. My heart raced. Will he be arrested? Yes, we are preparing for that. We'll also be looking for additional evidence to strengthen the case. I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and determination. I wanted him to face the consequences for what he did. As I left the station, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I knew I had to stay strong. I had to keep pushing forward. I couldn't let fear control me any longer. That evening, I met with Laura again. She was feeling better and looked more like herself. I'm glad you came, she said, her voice still a bit weak. I heard from the police, I told her. They're moving forward with charges against Mark. Laura's eyes widened. Really? That's good news. Yes, they have your statements in my evidence, I said. But I'm still scared. What if he tries to hurt us again? She nodded, understanding my fear. We need to stay vigilant. He's dangerous. We talked for a while about everything that had happened. I wanted to understand how Mark had changed so much. Did he always have this side? I asked Laura. She sighed. In the beginning, he seemed supportive. But over time, I noticed he was competitive and jealous. I thought it was just sibling rivalry. I shook my head. It's more than that. He was plotting against me. Laura looked down, guilt filling her eyes. I should have seen the signs sooner. I'm sorry I didn't warn you earlier. It's not your fault, I said, trying to comfort her. You were scared of him too. We made a plan to stay in touch and support each other. I felt a sense of unity with her. We were both victims of Mark's manipulation. The next few days were filled with uncertainty. I kept my phone close, waiting for updates from the police. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting back to the situation with Mark. Finally, I received a call from the detective. We have arrested Mark, he said. He's in custody and we're preparing for the arraignment. A surge of relief washed over me. What happens next? The arraignment will happen soon. You may need to testify, but we'll keep you informed, he replied. I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. I just want to see justice served, I said, my voice steady. As the days went by, I prepared myself for what was to come. I thought about testifying. I knew it would be difficult, but I was determined to stand up for myself. The day of the arraignment arrived. I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I dressed carefully, wanting to look strong and confident. I arrived at the courthouse, my heart racing. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. I took a seat, watching as the judge entered. My heart raced as I saw Mark sitting at the defendant's table. He looked different, more haggard. The judge began the proceedings, and I listened closely. The prosecution presented the evidence against Mark. I felt a mix of anger and relief as they laid out the facts. Then it was time for me to testify. I took a deep breath and walked to the stand. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I looked at Mark, and he glared back. I spoke clearly, recounting my experiences and the evidence I had gathered. I talked about the brunch, the coffee, and the texts from Laura. I felt empowered as I shared my truth. Mark's defense attorney tried to make me seem unstable. You're just paranoid, aren't you? He asked, trying to undermine my credibility. I held my ground. No, I have evidence. I'm not paranoid. I'm telling the truth. The tension in the room was palpable. I could see Mark's frustration growing. As I finished my testimony, I felt a wave of relief. I had stood up for myself. I had shared my story. I left the stand feeling stronger than ever. The trial was just beginning, but I knew I had taken a crucial step. I was ready to fight. I would see this through to the end. I would not let Mark win. I would find my strength and reclaim my life. The days after my testimony felt surreal. I had stood in front of the court and shared my truth. Now I waited for the next steps in the trial. I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Would justice be served? I kept in touch with Laura, who was recovering well. We supported each other through the process. One afternoon, I met her at a cafe, eager to talk about the trial. Emily, how are you holding up? She asked, her voice warm and caring. I'm okay, but the waiting is hard, I replied. I just want this to be over. Laura nodded, understanding my feelings. I know, but you're doing the right thing. We have to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone else. I agreed. I had to stay strong for both of us. The police had been gathering more evidence against Mark. They were interviewing people from our past. I knew they were building a strong case. As the trial date approached, I felt more anxious. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark would try to manipulate the situation. I had seen how he operated. He was clever and persuasive. One day, the detective called me. We're making progress. We found more evidence linking Mark to the poisoning incidents, he said. My heart raced. What kind of evidence? We discovered texts and emails where he discussed his plans to make you sick. This will help strengthen the case, he explained. I felt a surge of relief. That's great news. Will he be charged with more? Yes. We're preparing for the next court date, where the prosecution will present this evidence, he said. As the trial date approached, I tried to focus on my work, but it was difficult. I felt like I was living in two worlds, my everyday life and the looming trial. The day of the next court appearance arrived. I dressed carefully, wanting to look confident. I arrived at the courthouse early, my stomach in knots. Inside the courtroom, I took my seat, watching as people filed in. I saw Mark sitting at the defendant's table, looking more anxious than before. I felt a mix of emotions. I was scared, but I was also determined. The judge entered and the room quieted down. The prosecution began their presentation. They laid out the evidence against Mark, including the new texts and emails. I listened closely, feeling a sense of vindication as they shared the proof of his intentions. Then it was time for Laura to testify. I watched as she walked to the stand, her expression serious. I could see she was nervous but determined. Laura spoke about her experiences with Mark, sharing her fears and the conversations they had. Her voice shook at times, but she remained strong. I felt proud of her for standing up and telling the truth. As she finished, the defense attorney tried to undermine her credibility. You've been in a difficult situation, haven't you? How can we trust your testimony? He asked, trying to make her doubt herself. Laura held her ground. I know what I witnessed. I know what Mark planned. I'm telling the truth. The tension in the room was palpable. Mark's face darkened as he listened to Laura's words. I could see that he was growing more frustrated. After Laura finished, it was my turn to take the stand again. I took a deep breath and walked to the front. My heart raced as I faced the jury. I wanted to make them understand the truth. I spoke clearly, recounting my experiences once more. I explained how Mark's jealousy had turned into something dangerous. I shared the details of the brunch and the swap of mugs, emphasizing how I had felt sick repeatedly after meals with him and Laura. The defense attorney tried to twist my words. You're just making this all up because you're angry, aren't you? He asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. No, I replied firmly. I have evidence. This is about protecting myself and others. Mark isn't the person you think he is. The tension in the room was thick. I could see the jury listening closely, and I felt a surge of hope. I was sharing my truth and it mattered. After I finished, I stepped down from the stand, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I had done my part. I could only hope it would make a difference. The trial continued for several days. Each day I felt a mix of emotions: fear, anger, and determination. I wanted to see justice served, but I also worried about what Mark might do next. Finally, the prosecution rested their case. The judge called for a break before the defense presented their side. I stepped out into the hallway, needing a moment to breathe. Laura joined me, her expression serious. How do you feel? She asked. I'm scared but relieved that we've shared the truth, I said. I just hope the jury believes us. They will, she reassured me. We have strong evidence and you've both been brave. As we talked, I felt a sense of unity with Laura. We were fighting for our lives and we were in this together. When court resumed, the defense presented their case. They tried to paint Mark as a victim, claiming that I was paranoid and making false accusations. I felt anger rise within me as I listened to their attempts to discredit everything we had said. Finally, it was time for closing arguments. The prosecution made a passionate plea for justice. They reminded the jury of the evidence and the seriousness of Mark's actions. As I listened, I felt a spark of hope. We had come so far. I had shared my truth, and now it was in the jury's hands. After the closing arguments, the jury was sent to deliberate. I waited anxiously, my heart racing. I could only hope they would see the truth. Hours passed, and the tension was unbearable. Finally, a court officer came in and announced that the jury was ready to deliver their verdict. I felt a mix of fear and anticipation. I took a deep breath and steadied myself. This was the moment we had all been waiting for. Would justice be served? The courtroom felt electric as the jury returned. I sat at the edge of my seat, my heart racing. I glanced at Laura, who was sitting beside me, her eyes filled with hope and anxiety. The tension in the air was thick, and I could feel everyone holding their breath. The judge entered and called the court to order. "Have you reached a verdict?" he asked, looking at the jury foreman. "Yes, Your Honor," the foreman replied. "We find the defendant, Mark, guilty on all counts." I gasped, my heart soaring with relief. I looked at Laura and tears filled her eyes. We embraced tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. It was finally over. The judge spoke again. "Mark, you will be sentenced in 2 weeks. Until then, you will remain in custody." I watched as Mark's face turned pale. He looked shocked, unable to comprehend what had just happened. I felt a sense of satisfaction. He had tried to hurt me, but now he would face the consequences. After the verdict was read, the courtroom emptied, but I stayed behind to gather my thoughts. I needed to process everything that had happened. Laura joined me, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "I can't believe it," she said, wiping away her tears. "We did it, Emily." "Yes, we did," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. "But I'm still scared. He's dangerous, and he might try to retaliate." Laura nodded, understanding my fear. "We need to stay vigilant. But for now, let's celebrate this small victory." We fought hard. We left the courthouse together. The sun was shining, and I felt a sense of lightness. I had faced my fears, and we had won. Over the next few days, I tried to regain a sense of normalcy. I focused on work and spent time with friends who supported me. They were amazed by my strength, and I felt grateful for their encouragement. But I still worried about the sentencing. I knew Mark would be angry. I had seen his temper before, and I feared what he might do once he realized the full extent of his situation. One evening, I received a call from the detective. "Emily, I wanted to check in. How are you doing?" "I'm okay, but I'm still scared," I admitted. "What's going to happen with Mark now?" "We'll have extra security at the sentencing," he assured me. "We take threats seriously, and we want to make sure you're safe." I appreciated his concern but still felt uneasy. "Thank you. I just want to be free from this nightmare." As the days passed, I prepared myself for the sentencing. I knew I would have to face Mark again, and I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. Finally, the day arrived. I dressed carefully, wanting to look strong and confident. I arrived at the courthouse early, my heart pounding. I was determined to see this through to the end. When I walked into the courtroom, I saw Mark sitting at the defendant's table, looking more defeated than ever. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The prosecutor spoke first, detailing the evidence against Mark and the impact of his actions. I listened closely, feeling a mix of anger and pity for what he had done. Then it was time for the victim impact statements. I took a deep breath and stood up, my heart racing. I walked to the front of the courtroom, trying to steady my nerves. "Your Honor, I want to speak about how Mark's actions affected my life," I began, my voice shaking but determined. I never thought I would be in this situation, questioning the safety of my own home and family. I was scared, and I lost trust in people I loved. Tears filled my eyes as I continued. I had to fight for my truth, and I'm here today because I want to reclaim my life. Mark's actions were not just against me, they were an attack on my future, my career, and my happiness. I looked directly at Mark. "You thought you could control me, but you were wrong. I will not be a victim anymore. I am stronger than you think." The room was silent as I finished. I stepped down, feeling a wave of relief. I had said what I needed to say. Next, Laura spoke. She shared her experiences and how Mark's jealousy had affected her too. She wanted to show that Mark's actions didn't just hurt me, they hurt the people around him. After we spoke, the judge addressed Mark. "Your actions were calculated and malicious. You attempted to harm your own wife for your gain. This is unacceptable." I held my breath as the judge continued. "I hereby sentence you to 10 years in prison. You will also be required to undergo counseling upon release." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Mark would be held accountable for his actions. I looked at Laura, and we exchanged smiles. As the judge banged the gavel, I felt a sense of closure. The nightmare was finally over. I had stood up for myself, and I had fought for my truth. After the sentencing, I left the courthouse feeling lighter. I had faced my fears and come out stronger. I knew I still had work to do to rebuild my life, but I felt empowered to move forward. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I returned to work and spent time with friends and family who lifted my spirits. I began to reconnect with the things I loved, and slowly I started to feel like myself again. I also kept in touch with Laura. We had formed a bond through this experience, and I was grateful for her support. We talked about our plans for the future and how we would both move on from this dark chapter in our lives. One evening, as I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized that I had grown stronger. I had faced my fears, found my voice, and reclaimed my life. I was ready to embrace the future, knowing that I could overcome anything. The road ahead might be challenging, but I was determined to keep moving forward. I had found my strength, and I would never let anyone take that away from me again. Life after the trial was both freeing and unsettling. I had faced my fears and won, but I still felt the weight of what had happened. Mark was in prison, and I was finally free to rebuild my life. But the scars of the past lingered. I returned to my job, which helped me regain a sense of normalcy. My colleagues welcomed me back with open arms. They were supportive and kind, and I felt grateful for their understanding. I was determined to focus on my career and move forward. One day, my boss called me into her office. "Emily, we're proud of how you've handled everything," she said. "We'd like you to lead a new marketing campaign. It's a big opportunity for you." I felt a rush of excitement. This was what I needed. "Thank you. I'd love to," I replied, my confidence growing. As I worked on the campaign, I poured my energy into it. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. My passion for marketing returned, and I lost myself in the creative process. But even as I focused on my career, the memories of Mark haunted me. I often found myself glancing over my shoulder, checking to see if anyone was watching. I knew I had to confront these fears, but it wasn't easy. One evening, I met with Laura for dinner. We decided to celebrate our victories. "I'm so proud of you, Emily," she said, raising her glass. "You've come so far." "Thank you, Laura. I couldn't have done it without your support," I replied, feeling grateful for her friendship. As we chatted, I felt a sense of comfort. We shared stories about our lives and laughed over past memories. It was nice to have someone who understood what I had been through. Laura then asked, "Have you thought about what you want to do next? Any plans for the future?" I paused, considering her question. "I want to focus on my career, but I also want to travel. I've always dreamed of exploring new places." Her eyes lit up. "That sounds amazing. You should go for it. You deserve to enjoy life." As our dinner continued, I felt a sense of hope. I could see a future where I could embrace new experiences and leave the past behind. Over the next few weeks, I worked hard on the campaign. I collaborated with my team, and we created something special. I felt a sense of pride as we presented our ideas to the company. The day of the big presentation arrived. I stood in front of the board, my heart racing. I felt prepared, but nerves still crept in. I took a deep breath and began my presentation. As I spoke, I saw the interest in their eyes. I shared my passion, and it felt good to be in control. I was no longer the scared woman who had faced Mark. I was strong and capable. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. "Great job, Emily," my boss said, smiling. "We're excited to move forward with this campaign." I felt a wave of joy wash over me. I had done it. I had taken a significant step in my career, and it felt empowering. That evening, I celebrated with friends. We went out to dinner, and I couldn't stop smiling. I felt like I was finally living my life again. But my peace was short-lived. One night, I received an unexpected message from Mark. My heart dropped as I read his words. "I'm out. You can't hide from me." Panic set in. I had thought Mark would be in prison for a long time. I quickly called Laura, my voice shaky. "He's out. I don't know what to do." "Stay calm. We'll figure this out," she said, her voice steady. "You need to contact the police and let them know." I hung up and dialed the detective. "Mark is out of prison. I need help," I said, my voice trembling. "We'll send someone to check on you," he assured me. "Stay inside and lock your doors. Don't confront him." I felt a mix of fear and anger. I had fought so hard to reclaim my life, and now Mark was back. I couldn't let him control me again. The next few days were tense. I stayed close to home, rarely leaving. I felt trapped, but I knew I had to stay strong. Laura visited often, bringing me comfort. "You're not alone in this," she reminded me. "We'll get through this together." One afternoon, while I was at home, I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced. I peered through the peephole, my breath catching in my throat. It was Mark. I stepped back, panic rising. I had to keep calm. I quickly called the police. "He's here. Please hurry," I whispered, my hands shaking. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest. I heard Mark calling my name through the door. "Emily, let me in. We need to talk." "No," I shouted back, my voice firm. "Leave me alone." I heard him pounding on the door, and fear gripped me. But then I heard sirens approaching. Relief flooded through me. The police arrived quickly and apprehended Mark outside. I watched from a safe distance as they took him away. I felt a mix of fear and triumph. After they left, I sat on my couch, my heart still racing. I realized I couldn't let fear control my life. I had to keep moving forward. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I attended therapy sessions to process everything that had happened. I learned how to cope with my anxiety and fears. I also began planning my travels. I wanted to explore new places and embrace life again. It felt liberating to have goals and dreams once more. I reached out to friends and we planned a trip together. I felt excited about the future. I was ready to take back my life and find joy again. As I stood on the brink of new adventures, I realized that I had come a long way. I had faced my fears, fought for my truth, and emerged stronger. I was ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me. With each step I took, I could feel the past fading away. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. And I was ready to live. As I prepared for my upcoming trip, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was my chance to explore the world and truly begin to live again. I had made plans with friends to travel to several cities, and I couldn't wait to experience everything. The day before our departure, I met with Laura for coffee. "Are you ready for this adventure?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I think so," I replied, feeling the butterflies in my stomach. "I've been waiting for this for so long. I just hope I can keep my fears at bay." "You will," Laura said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You've already faced so much. This trip is about embracing your freedom." I smiled, grateful for her support. We spent our time talking about the places we would visit and the experiences we wanted to have. It felt good to dream about the future. The next morning, I packed my bags, feeling a rush of excitement. I included everything I needed: clothes, toiletries, and a journal to document my journey. I knew this trip would be a turning point for me. Once I arrived at the airport, I met my friends. They were all excited and ready for the adventure ahead. We checked in and I felt the weight of my worries lift. I was surrounded by people who cared, and I was ready to embrace this new chapter. The first stop was a vibrant city filled with culture and history. As we explored, I felt alive. We visited museums, tried street food, and took countless photos. I was finally able to let go of the past, if only for a little while. One evening, we found a rooftop restaurant with a stunning view of the city skyline. As the sun set, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I could see the world was full of possibilities, and I was ready to seize them. I pulled out my journal and began to write. I wanted to capture every moment, every feeling. I wrote about the freedom I felt, the laughter we shared, and the beauty of the city around me. But as the days went by, I couldn't completely shake off my anxiety. I still felt the shadows of my past lurking in the corners of my mind. I tried to enjoy myself, but moments of fear crept in unexpectedly. One night, while we were walking back to our hotel, I spotted a man who looked familiar. My heart raced as I realized it was someone from my past, a friend of Mark's. Panic set in. I quickly turned to my friends and whispered, "Let's hurry back." They noticed my distress and asked what was wrong. "I think I saw someone I don't want to talk to," I explained, my voice shaky. "Just keep walking. You're safe with us," one of my friends assured me. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on my surroundings. With their support, I felt a little better. We returned to the hotel without incident, but the encounter left me shaken. The next day, I decided to confront my fears. I wasn't going to let my past control me. I talked to my friends about what had happened. "I want to face this. I can't let fear dictate my life anymore," I said, my voice steady. "You're strong, Emily. You've already overcome so much," one friend replied. "Let's make the most of this trip and enjoy ourselves." With their encouragement, I pushed myself to explore more. We visited local markets, tried new foods, and engaged with the locals. With each passing day, I felt more in control. One afternoon, we went hiking in the nearby hills. The fresh air invigorated me, and the stunning views were breathtaking. I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in years. I realized I was reclaiming my life, step by step. That night, we gathered for dinner at a lively restaurant. As I looked around at my friends, I felt a wave of gratitude. They had supported me through my darkest times, and now we were creating beautiful memories together. As the trip continued, I found myself laughing more and feeling lighter. I knew I still had work to do, but every moment of joy brought me closer to healing. I kept reminding myself that I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, and I would not let my past define me. On our final night in the city, we gathered on the rooftop of our hotel to watch the sunset. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink. I took a moment to reflect on everything I had experienced. "I'm so glad we did this," I said, looking at my friends. "I really needed this trip." "You've grown so much, Emily." "It's inspiring to see," one friend replied. In that moment, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced my fears and embraced new adventures. I was ready to continue my journey of healing and growth. After returning home, I felt refreshed and empowered. I was determined to keep moving forward. I signed up for a personal development workshop to continue working on myself. I wanted to embrace new opportunities and connect with others. I also made it a point to stay close to Laura. We became each other's support system, sharing our goals and encouraging one another. It felt good to have someone who understood my journey. As I settled back into my routine, I felt more confident. I was ready to take on new challenges at work and in my personal life. Every step I took brought me closer to the life I wanted. I realized that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant learning from it and using it to become stronger. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing I had the strength to face it. With each passing day, I felt more in control of my life. I had found my voice, my strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to write my own story, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take me next. As the weeks passed, I felt a sense of normalcy returning to my life. I was back at work, focusing on my marketing campaign, and I was excited about the progress I was making. The support of my friends and Laura kept me grounded, and I felt stronger each day. One afternoon, I received a call from the detective. "Emily, I wanted to give you an update on Mark's case," he said. My heart raced as I listened. "He's been sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he won't be eligible for parole for at least 5 years, the detective explained. "We also have him on record for his actions against you and Laura." A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you for letting me know." "It's a weight off my shoulders," I replied. "You did the right thing by coming forward," he said. "Justice has been served, and you should feel proud of your bravery." I hung up, feeling a mix of emotions. I was glad that Mark would face the consequences of his actions, but I also realized that I still had work to do to fully heal. As I immersed myself in my work, I began to notice positive changes in my confidence. I took the lead on my marketing campaign, and my ideas were being well received. My boss recognized my hard work and even encouraged me to present at an upcoming industry conference. When she first suggested it, I felt a rush of fear. "I don't know if I can do that," I said, my anxiety creeping in. "You can, Emily. You've overcome so much already. This is an opportunity for you to shine," she replied, her encouragement bolstering my confidence. After a few days of thinking it over, I decided to accept the challenge. I began preparing my presentation, focusing on my experiences and the lessons I learned about resilience and trust. I wanted to inspire others who might be facing their own struggles. The day of the conference arrived, and I stood backstage, my heart racing. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. This was my moment to share my story and empower others. As I stepped onto the stage, I felt the spotlight on me. I looked out at the audience, and a wave of confidence washed over me. I began to speak, sharing my journey and the importance of standing up for oneself. I talked about the challenges I faced and how I transformed my fear into strength. I shared my experiences of overcoming Mark's manipulation and the support I found in my friends and family. I emphasized the importance of seeking help and believing in oneself. As I spoke, I saw nods of understanding in the audience. I felt a connection with them, and it fueled my passion. I wanted to let them know that they were not alone in their struggles. When I finished my presentation, the audience erupted in applause. I felt tears of joy fill my eyes. I had not only shared my story, but I had also inspired others. Afterward, people approached me to thank me for my honesty. "Your story touched me," one woman said, her voice filled with emotion. "I've been through something similar, and hearing you speak gave me hope." I felt a sense of purpose in that moment. I knew I wanted to continue sharing my story and supporting others who faced their own battles. As I left the conference, I felt lighter. I had taken a significant step in my healing journey. I was no longer just a survivor, I was a warrior. In the following weeks, I continued to share my story through workshops and community events. I found joy in connecting with others, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I also made time for myself, focusing on self-care and enjoying life. I took up yoga, started journaling more, and even took a weekend trip to the beach with friends. I realized I needed to celebrate my victories, no matter how small. One evening, as I sat on my balcony, I reflected on how far I had come. I had faced my fears, fought for my truth, and found my voice. I was finally living the life I had always wanted. But I knew the journey wasn't over. Healing takes time, and I was committed to continuing my growth. I embraced the challenges ahead, knowing that I had the strength to overcome anything. As I prepared for the next phase of my journey, I felt a surge of excitement. I was ready to explore new opportunities and embrace life fully. I had learned that I was not defined by my past, but rather by how I chose to move forward. With each passing day, I was writing a new chapter in my life. I was reclaiming my happiness, and I was excited to see where this path would lead me. I had transformed my pain into purpose, and I was determined to keep pushing forward. The future was bright, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. I had found my strength, and I would never let it go. As I looked up at the stars that night, I felt a sense of peace. I was free, and I was ready to live my life on my own terms. I had taken back my power and nothing could hold me back now. Months went by, and I continued to rebuild my life. Each day felt brighter than the last. I had embraced my journey and was ready to move forward. My work at the marketing firm flourished, and I felt more confident in my skills than ever before. One afternoon, my boss called me into her office. "Emily, I have great news," she said, her eyes shining. "The campaign you led has received an award. We want you to present it at the annual Business Leaders Conference in Nashville." My heart raced at the thought. "Really? That's amazing," I replied, unable to contain my excitement. "Yes, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to showcase your talent." "I believe in you," she said. I felt a wave of pride wash over me. After everything I had been through, this was a moment of triumph. I accepted the invitation, knowing it would be a chance to share my story with others who might need hope. As the conference approached, I prepared my presentation carefully. I wanted to highlight not only my work, but also the lessons I had learned about resilience and trust. I felt a responsibility to inspire others who had faced challenges in their lives. The day of the conference arrived, and I stood backstage, my heart pounding. I took deep breaths to calm my nerves. I reminded myself of all the progress I had made and the strength I had found within me. When it was time for me to speak, I walked onto the stage, feeling the spotlight on me. I looked out at the audience, which was filled with business leaders and aspiring entrepreneurs. I felt a rush of excitement as I began my presentation. I shared my journey, the struggles I had faced, and the importance of standing up for oneself. I spoke about how I transformed my pain into purpose and how I found my voice through adversity. I wanted everyone to know that they could overcome their challenges too. As I spoke, I saw the audience nodding, their eyes focused on me. I felt a connection with them, and it fueled my passion. I shared my story of survival and empowerment, and I could see the impact it was having. When I finished, the audience erupted in applause. I felt tears of joy fill my eyes. I had shared my truth, and it resonated with others. It was a powerful moment, and I felt a sense of fulfillment. After the presentation, many people came up to me to express their gratitude. "Thank you for sharing your story," one woman said, her voice filled with emotion. "I've been through a tough time, and hearing you speak gave me hope." I felt honored to connect with them. It was a reminder of why I had chosen to share my journey. I wanted to inspire others to find their strength and reclaim their lives. As the conference continued, I met other leaders in the industry. I networked and exchanged ideas, feeling a sense of belonging. I had come so far from the woman who had once felt trapped and afraid. At the end of the conference, I received the award for Best Marketing Campaign. I stood on stage holding the trophy, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. I had achieved something significant, and it was a testament to my hard work and determination. As I left the conference, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced my fears, shared my story, and connected with others. I was ready to embrace my future with open arms. Back home, I reflected on everything I had experienced. I had learned that life is unpredictable, but I had the power to shape my own path. I had found my voice, my strength, and my purpose. I continued to share my story through workshops and community events. I was passionate about helping others who faced their own struggles. I wanted to show them that they could overcome their fears and find their way back to happiness. One evening, as I sat on my balcony, I looked up at the stars. I felt a deep sense of peace. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful, and I was living a life full of purpose. I realized that true success is not just about career achievements. It's about integrity, resilience, and the connections we make with others. I had built a support system of friends and family who stood by me, and I was grateful for their love. As I moved forward, I embraced new opportunities. I planned trips to places I had always wanted to visit, eager to explore the world. I was ready to create new memories and cherish every moment. I knew that life would still have its challenges, but I felt prepared to face whatever came my way. I had learned to believe in myself and trust my instincts. I was stronger than I had ever realized. With each new day, I felt a renewed sense of hope. I was ready to embrace my future, knowing that I could overcome anything. I had found my strength, and I would continue to rise. As I closed my eyes that night, I made a promise to myself. I would never let fear control my life again. I would keep moving forward, celebrating every victory, and embracing the journey ahead. My story was just beginning, and I was excited to see where it would take me next. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.